Dear students, hearty welcome to today's English class. Today we have Unit 2, Section 3, The Banyan Tree, poem written by Rabindranadh Tagore. We all know that Rabindranadh Tagore is the poet who wrote our national anthem. He was born in the year 1861 and died in the year 1941. He was a poet, short story writer, song composer, playwright, essayist, and painter who introduced new prose and verse forms and the use of colloquial language into Bengali literature, thereby freeing it from traditional models based on classical Sanskrit. He was highly influential in introducing Indian culture to the West and vice versa, and he is generally regarded as the outstanding creative artist of early 20th century India. In 1913, he became the first non-European to receive the Nobel Prize for Literature. We have a wonderful poem written by Rabindranadh Tagore. First of all, I will play an animated version of this poem. You have to carefully watch it and follow it, and you should follow the pronunciation, intonation, and tone of the poem. You can try to understand the poem also. Afterwards, we will try to see the poem in details. So shall we go to our animation? Please watch.
Oh, you shaggy-headed banyan tree standing on the bank of the pond, have you forgotten the little child, like the birds that have nested in your branches and left you? Do you not remember how he sat at the window and wondered at the tangle of your roots that plunged underground? The women would come to fill their jars in the pond, and your huge black shadow would wriggle on the water like sleep struggling to wake up. Sunlight danced on the ripples like restless tiny shuttles, weaving golden tapestry. Two ducks swam by the weedy margin above their shadows, and the child would sit still and think. He longed to be the wind and blow through your rustling branches, to be your shadow and lengthen with the day on the water, to be a bird and perch on your topmost twig, and to float like those ducks among the weeds and shadows.
Students, I hope you enjoyed the poem, which played in an animated way. Now we will see the poem little by little. Oh, you shaggy-headed banyan tree, standing on the bank of the pond, have you forgotten the little child, like the birds that have nested in your branches and left you? In the first three lines, we can see what a little boy who is talking to a banyan tree. The poet himself is asking the banyan tree, have you forgotten? Like whom? Like the little birds that have nested in your branches and left you. So the child is asking to the banyan tree at the bank of the pond whether the banyan tree remembers him or not. Probably the child, the poet is talking to a banyan tree which was there when the poet was a young child. And since banyan tree is a huge tree, there were birds who made nest. Birds who make nest on a tree may not stay there forever. They will stay there for a while and they will have eggs and small birds. Afterwards they may leave. They may forget this banyan tree. They may make a nest in some other trees afterwards. So the same way the child is asking, you too have forgotten me like the birds who nested on you forgot you. Do you not remember how he sat at the window and wondered at the tangle of your roots that plunged underground? Do you not remember what? How that little boy sat at the window, maybe of his house, and wondered at the tangle of your roots. What is tangle? A twisted mass of roots that cannot be easily separated. It's a speciality of banyan tree that which will have some roots goes directly from its branches to the earth. Normally, the roots of ordinary trees, normal trees, will be going from its main trunk to the earth. But banyan tree has got a speciality. There are roots from its branches to the earth, directly to the earth. So this boy has got wondered because only this tree has, banyan tree has got this kind of roots from the branches to the earth. So this poet is asking to the tree, do you remember the boy who was child who was sitting at his window of his home or house and wondering at your huge tangles that going down? The woman would come to fill their jars in the pond, and your huge black shadow would wriggle on the water like sleep struggling to wake up. The child, when the poet was a little child, he was sitting at the window of his house and looking at with amazement at the banyan tree at the bank of the pond. And while he was wondering at the tangles of your roots, who used to come, women would come to collect water from the pond. They will come with jars and they will dip it in the pond. What will happen? Which will make ripples in the water. So when there are ripples, what will happen? There is a shadow of this banyan tree in the pond. When ripples are made, the shadow of banyan tree will wriggle. Wriggle means the shadow of tree would twist and turn rapidly because the women dip the jug or the pot they brought, so which will make some disturbance in the water in the pond. So the shadow or image of our banyan tree also will shake. That's what a poet talking about. For the poet, all these things are things of past. But now he is, as a poet, he is talking to the banyan tree, and he remembers his childhood days, how he sat at the window of his house and looked at the banyan tree and watched the pond and wondered at the tangles of banyan tree. And he remembers the women who came to collect water from the pond. Sunlight danced on the ripples like restless tiny shuttles weaving golden tapestry. Shuttle, a pointed tool used in making cloth. Weavers using a shuttle which will throw from this side to that side to this. Which is used by weavers. Tapestry, a picture on pattern that is made by weaving. So there are pictures being made by weavers in different cloths. That's what poet is talking about. One more simile that our poet was talking in the previous lines, that was how he felt when the shadow of banyan tree got wriggled in the pond. It's like wriggle on what, like sleep struggling to wake up. Sleep, one who is sleep is a water like sleep struggling to wake up. He felt that the shadow of the banyan tree was sleeping in the pond, and when someone dip or someone disturb it, its struggling to get up from the sleep. That's what he felt. Here, sunlight danced on the ripples. The sunlight was falling on the pond. When the ripples being made, what happens? They will flicker. So he feels as what? It's like ripples, like a restless tiny shuttle weaving golden tapestry. The sunlight fallen on the water in the pond like reflected like golden color. When ripples are there, disturbance are there, they will flicker, and he feels it. It's like weavers making different wonderful colorful designs using golden threads in their cloth. It's like that he felt. It's flickering or twinkling. Two ducks swam by the weedy margin above their shadows, and the child would sit still and think. There were two ducks. They were swimming in the pond. How they move? They swam the weedy margin above their shadows. They move in the water. And the child would sit still and think. He's sitting and thinking. He's just enjoying. He just loved the scene. He longed to be the wind and blow through your rustling branches. And what the child would love to do, that's what we are going to see in the last lines. To be your shadow and lengthen with the day on the water. To be the bird and perch on your topmost twig, and to float like those ducks among the weeds and shadows. The child longed to be a wind. He would like to be the wind in the nature and blow through your rustling branch. If I'm a wind, I can go through the rustling branches of our banyan tree. To be your shadow and lengthen with the day and water. He wanted to be the shadow of banyan tree, and in the daytime lengthen with the day on the water. Yes, he wanted to be in the water like the shadow. To be a bird, then he wanted to be a bird. The child wanted to be a bird and perch. Perch means the way birds sit on the branches on your topmost twig. He wanted to not in any lower branches. He wanted the topmost twig, top tiny branches. That is what twig means of the banyan tree, and float like those ducks among the weeds and shadows. The next thing he wanted to have a float like the ducks. You can see certain kind of plants in the pond. That's what's weeds. He like the ducks. He wanted to float in the water, swim in the water. Yes, all little children, where they wanted, there are certain children, they would say that if I wanted to be a cat or I wanted to be a duck. This small child also wanted to be like that. Then he could go like those creatures or animals or like wind. It was only the fantasy of a little boy. So poet remembers all these things once he is grown up. We knew that banyan tree is a tree which will live for any trees will live for a long time, from when you were a child or when you grown up. So the Rabindranadh Tagore just think, or he is happy about to remember or just to cherish his memories about his childhood days, how he spent looking at the banyan tree and pond. I hope, dear students, you might have enjoyed this poem. Why do you think the poet calls the banyan tree shaggy-headed? Shaggy-headed means uncombed hair. It's like so huge and big in size. Yes, the is so greeny leaves are lot of lush green leaves are there. So that's what shaggy-headed means. Then we see what who has the tree forgotten. The tree. Poet is doubtful whether the tree has forgotten the child, because the child was looking at the tree for a long time in his childhood. Who has forgotten the tree? Birds who nested on the tree has forgotten the child. The poet is doubtful whether the tree has forgotten the child, whereas birds, they have forgotten the tree. What did the child sitting at the window and wonder about? We had seen it while we were reading the poem. The boy who was sitting at the window got wondered about the tangle of trees' roots. Now we have what did the child sitting at the window and wondered about? That's what we have seen. Why do you think the tree shadow would wriggle? The shadow would wriggle because women with the jug or pot will come and dip it in the pond. So the tree shadow would wriggle. To what has the poet compared the tree's wriggling shadow? Why? It's like a getting up from the sleep. That's what it is compared. To what has the poet compared the dancing sunlight? Why? It was compared to the weavers who are making wonderful designs in the cloths. What did the child long to be? The child wanted to be wind, child wanted to be a bird, and then child wanted to be the duck. Why do you think the child longed to be these things? Because he wanted to be the part of this nature. He wanted to be the part of this nature. Rather than being a human child, he wanted to be a duck, he wanted to be a bird, he wanted to be the wind. So he feels one and you get in union with the nature. Do you think by being the wind or bird or shadow, the child would feel closer to the tree? The child felt so, as he was, so he can spend as much as the time with the tree. That's what he felt. So a speaker, so in this poem, a speaker is asking the tree if he remembers a child that used to rest on his branches but has now left. He then asks if the tree remembers the women coming near to fill up their water jugs, the sunlight dancing on the water, and the animals playing as the child would sit and think. The child wanted to play on the branches of the tree and be a part of the nature and wild life of the area. There is a shift between the child and sit still and think, and he longed to be. Everything before this point was describing the scenic life around the banyan tree. But after he longed to be, the poem goes into detail about how the child wants to become the part of the nature. Be the wind and the blow through the branches, the bird and perch on the twigs, and duck to float among the weeds and shadows. The banyan tree is now a symbol of memories of the child that once played on it, the little Rabindranadh Tagore. It's a safe haven to the creatures of nature. Yet all of the creatures who were indebted to it have now left it, leaving the tree in a state of quiet solitude. The speaker is asking the tree if he remembers that he was once full of life and love. Dear students, now we will see the question answers of the poem. We have question number 1. Let's read and enjoy. What does the word shaggy mean? Does the word aptly describe a banyan tree? Shaggy means, when I hear the shaggy means, I remember the picture of Rabindranadh Tagore. He has got a shaggy hair and beard like that. The word shaggy means long and untidy. Yet it aptly describes the tree because the branches and leaves of the tree will never be neat and orderly. Now we will see question number 2. Why does the huge black shadow of the tree wriggle when the women come to the pond? When the women come to the pond and dip their pot into the water, ripples are formed on the surface of the water. As the ripples move across the pond, the shadow of the banyan tree wriggles in turn. Now we have question number 3. The poem compares the shadow wriggling on the water to sleep struggling to wake up. Do you think the comparison is appropriate and why? According to the poet, the shadow wriggling is like sleep struggling to wake up. This comparison is appropriate because it resembles the fluttering eyelids of a person trying to wake up. Question number 4. Why do you think the poem is written in the past tense? Is the boy still young? The poem is written in the past tense because the poet is talking about sometimes he recollects from his childhood something that happened in the past. Now the boy is not a young anymore. Now we have a question number 5. Sunlight danced like restless tiny shuttles is an example of a simile. What is simile? That is also given here. A simile is a word or phrase that compares something to something else. It's a literary device. We call it a figure of speech using the words like or as. Find other simile in the poem. We shall see in the poem what the answer. Oh, you shaggy-headed banyan tree standing on the bank of the pond, have you forgotten the little child? Like the birds that have nested in your branches and left you? Your huge black shadow would wriggle on the water like sleep struggling to wake up. Now we will see question number 6. In the poem, the birds, the women, and the ducks all come and go, but the banyan tree stands unchanged through the years. It stands for permanence. Do you agree? Explain. Yes, definitely we have to agree that the banyan tree is a symbol of permanence and timelessness in the poem. While the birds, women, and the little boy come and go and change over the years, the banyan tree stands unchanged. Dear students, we have seen a new term in this time. I'm not sure whether you have studied it in your previous classes or in lower classes, that is simile. So now I am going to give you an explanation, not with too much details, but just the definition, and you can, with that definition and few examples, you can try to understand what is simile. So now we are going to see simile. That is actually we have in question number 5 we had a question related to, it was a question related to simile. So now we will see about simile. So we shall try to understand what is simile. A simile is a figure of speech that makes a comparison, comparing two things, showing similarities between two different things. A simile draws resemblance with the help of the words like or as. Therefore, it is a direct comparison. We can find simile examples in our daily speech. We often hear comments like, he is as slow as a snail. Snails are notorious for their slow pace, speed. And here the slowness of a person is compared to that of a snail. The use of as in the example helps to draw the resemblance. Now we know the definition of simile. Let's look at some examples of common similes. That means two things are having some same features that we compare each other. Our soldiers are as brave as lions. We know very well that our soldiers are not just like lions, but they are brave. Like lions, they are brave enough. That's what we compare them. Her cheeks are red like a rose. So the redness of her cheek is compared to that the redness of a rose flower. He is as funny as a monkey. The monkey seems to be a funny animal. So he also shows some kind of justice, as funny as that of a monkey. The water well as dry as a bone. The water well, there is nothing, no water in it. So it is as dry as a bone. He is as cunning as a fox. Fox is considered as a very cunning animal, very crooked animal. So here if we come across a person who is very crooked and cunning just like a fox, so he is as cunning as a fox. Simile introduces vividness. Vividness means colorfulness into what we say. What we say, we can make it more meaningful, colorful, and vivid by using similes. Authors and poets use simile to convey their sentiments, feelings, and thoughts through vivid word pictures, or in a colorful way, in more enchanting way, or more in an attractive way. So dear students, I hope now you got some idea about what its simile is all about. You have to write the word meanings and sentences I sent to you. The questions answers also should be written in your notebook. I would like to remind you about writing cursive writing book, copy book. The printed cursive writing book is with you. You can write in it and please send to me. You have to go through the poem thoroughly and understand the poem, understand the question answers, word meanings and sentences, and get prepared for the online test that we will conduct in the next day. Until we meet in the next English class, dear students, thank you. Take care.
Oh, you shaggy-headed banyan tree standing on the bank of the pond, have you forgotten the little child, like the birds that have nested in your branches and left you? Do you not remember how he sat at the window and wondered at the tangle of your roots that plunged underground? The women would come to fill their jars in the pond, and your huge black shadow would wriggle on the water like sleep struggling to wake up. Sunlight danced on the ripples like restless tiny shuttles, weaving golden tapestry. Two ducks swam by the weedy margin above their shadows, and the child would sit still and think. He longed to be the wind and blow through your rustling branches, to be your shadow and lengthen with the day on the water, to be a bird and perch on your topmost twig, and to float like those ducks among the weeds and shadows.